This is Center Stage at Beth Israel. Thanks for tuning back in. Dr. Peter Haas, good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me.
And may I call you Professor Haas?
Sure.
How long have you been a professor, sir?
I finished grad school and got my first job at Vanderbilt in 1980.
And what is this general subject matter of your expertise?
What was called then formative Judaism, in other words, early rabbinic Judaism, first century or so in the Greco-Roman period. But then I sort of branched out to Western religions in general, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, did courses in the Middle East. I was also a military chaplain for a while, so occasionally did just war theory.
Let's try to aim our discussion to the hotbed issue that we've had at least 30 days now, and that is this current struggle in the Middle East, initiated, I think, 30 days ago. Where do you think it stands right now?
To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure where it stands right now because I'm still not sure what it's really all about. My hunch is that President Trump thought this was a propitious time. He was being pushed by Israel. He was being pushed by Saudi Arabia to do something already. There were popular uprisings in Tehran and elsewhere, and he thought, well, if he started a war, there would be an uprising, they'd overthrow the Ayatollah, democracy would evolve, and it would be all over 3-4 days. We'd be home for dinner.
And is it fair to assume that in the Middle East area, Israel is a representative democracy at this time?
I think it is fair to say that. Yes, it's a minority coalition government, but nonetheless a coalition government. There are several different parties. There are opposition parties. People are very vocal. So yeah, I mean, it is, as much as there's a functioning democracy in the Middle East, Israel would be it.
And would any other country so far have earned that title of what I'm going to call a Madisonian government?
The closest maybe is Lebanon, but Lebanon has not been very effective. Because, again, of the ethnic diversity in the country, and especially the Shia South and the rise of Hezbollah. So Lebanon is complicated. I think they've kind of pulled it off, and they have been somewhat successful. But, yeah, Lebanon is on it's just struggling.
And how about Syria? When we had originally agreed to talk, right. I had page after page of Syria notes.
Oh,
and it seems like they've come on to maybe the second section of the paper these days. How is Syria when it comes to some sort of representative government, sir?
Well, right now they don't have a representative government per se. Assad regime is overthrown. The new leader, I think, is trying to move in that direction, and he's making progress. It's half step by half step, but he is making some progress. But they are dissident ethnic groups and religious groups like the Awalis in the north, which were the backers of the Assad regime. The Druze feel under attack. There's just demonstrations now by Christian communities that don't feel they're being protected enough. So he's still trying to kind of pull the country back together. But I think he's trying to move in a somewhat democratic direction. Whether he can pull it off is another question, but I think he's trying.
And what would be again, we try to use America as our sphere here. Do the people, the hardworking people that go to work every day in all these miscellaneous communities, do they have any type of role in the decision-making process for a government?
Not really in any of those countries. Again, Lebanon is probably the closest because they actually have different parties and they actually have elections and they actually have a parliament. Syria is kind of getting there. Otherwise, it's you've got a kingship in Jordan, you've got a very repressive regime in Egypt. The Gulf states are maybe also kind of close, but they're autocratic as well.
And does an autocratic government necessarily mean an enemy of the United States?
No, I mean, we have, look at the Abraham Accords. I mean, this was Saudi Arabia, it was the Gulf states, it was the Emirates, and it was Israel. Syria has since said at some point it would like to join in as well. So these are not enemies of the United States. They're looking at the United States as a partner in building an economically viable Middle East that doesn't depend on oil.
Doesn't depend on oil.
Does not. They're all trying to move beyond that. Saudi Arabia is, and so they're Gulf states. They're looking at high tech and AI and these various kind of things. And that's why they want economic relations with Israel. They want the expertise.
And so, what is the importance, that's a word I use in quotation marks, what is the importance of the type of government for all those countries as it relates to what they're trying to accomplish on a broader scale?
Well, I think each country is its own story. You know, we could do 6 different interviews, but the Gulf states have, and to a large extent Saudi Arabia, have the advantage of being not too terribly ethnically or nationally or whatever you want to call it, diverse. They're Sunni, they have strong central leadership, there's not a lot of minority groups that are fighting against them, so that gives them a certain amount of stability. Iraq has major ethnic groups. There's Kurds, there's Arabs, there's Sunnis, there's Shia. Syria also has lots of different regional ethnic groups, like the Druze or the Kurds or the Awalis or the Sunnis or the Shias and so on. There are also secular communities, Christian communities in all of these places. So you need to put together a government in which all of those people and groups and ethnicities and what we would call nationalities are represented and feel protected, or at least heard, or at least feel they're at the table. As I mentioned to you earlier on this regard, one of my favorite empires is the Ottoman Empire, which, depending on how you count it, but took over around 1258 and lasted till, well, 1920s, right, till World War I. And they kept the region pretty quiet, and they did that by giving everybody a seat at the table. If you were Jewish, wherever you were in the Middle East, you had a seat at the table because there was an official chief rabbi representative. Every Christian community, the Sunnis, the Shias, everybody had a seat at the table in Constantinople. And so nobody really needed to rebel or wanted to rebel because they were all minorities. But in the Ottomans, you had the ear of the Sultan. And that's a trick nobody's ever, since then, been able to pull off.
And what is the swath of land, geography-wise, that Ottoman Empire covered?
Pretty much the current Middle East and parts of North Africa.
So when you talk about all these diverse groups and different aims, the state of Israel, since 1948, has always seemed to have an argument about what time of the day it is, because there's so many conflicting groups. But Israel at least has, again, attained a representative form of government. Is it possible that these outlying neighbors, here's the question of the day, can they ever agree upon a concept where Israel has a right to exist?
Well, I think many of them have. And I think, again, we can talk about the Gulf states, the Emirates, and so on and so forth. They have. Saudi Arabia has. They're willing to go ahead with the Abraham Accords, build a deal, and move forward together with Israel. Egypt's on board as well. Iran obviously is not. Syria, I think, is trying to get on board. Jordan has been more or less friendly with Israel for decades now. So I think it's possible. But you've got an ideologically, or I should say theologically driven regime in Iran right now, which is keeping that from happening, both itself and what it calls its axis of resistance. So the Sunnis in Iraq, and Hezbollah, and Hamas, and the Houthis in Yemen. So that's the resistance.
Well, it sounds like you're saying, but for Iran, the other surrounding countries are somewhat at peace with Israel and trying to actually join into some economic agreements and move forward. Is that true?
I think that's true, especially at the government level. Popular level, it's more complicated because, well, especially because of this current war. But there's other resentments and there are other tensions going on. I think in terms of the governments, especially Jordan and Egypt, and to some extent Lebanon, the government The governments want to because they need to move forward economically and politically and everything else. And you're just not going to get rid of Israel. So, how do we move forward? On the popular level, I think it's probably much more diverse.
And prior to a month ago, there was still discussion about the situation in Gaza almost every day.
Right.
And it seems as though it isn't on page 1 or page 5 at the moment. But that issue is unresolved. Fair?
Fair.
And do you see any light at any end of any tunnel to say, here's how we're going to handle it?
Yeah. So right now, the U.S. has a proposal, or I forget what Trump has called it, but this peace commission that's supposed to rebuild Gaza has told Hamas that if they disarm, then things can move forward, things being reconstruction, return of population, opening of border crossings, but that the first step is a demilitarization of Hamas. And the last I heard a couple days ago that Hamas was considering it.
And because these are what might be called NGOs, non-governmental organizations, if Hamas said, okay, we're going to lay down our arms, and you're going to do this, and we're going to recognize Israel, if that announcement came tomorrow,
Yeah.
and it's signed by Tuesday, is it something that anybody could trust would actually move forward?
It's hard to know. What the U.S. is trying to do, on the other hand, besides get Hamas to voluntarily demilitarize itself, is to find an alternate military group that is not Hamas and that is not dependent on Iran, and create a local police force that would work with the U.S. And that's stumbling forward, too. So there's partly an interplay in Gaza, as far as I can understand it, between the U.S. trying to get an alternate to Hamas, Hamas wanting to stay in power, Israel controlling part of Hamas, a lot of Gazans wanting to come back but are on the other side of the border, like in Egypt or whatever. And there's struggles among the different tribes. If there's another military police force instead of Hamas, what's our role in it? So it's back to a very basic tribal and clan level.
And what?
So the answer is no.
Yeah. Are Israel and America on the same, let's start with, are they on the same page for peace currently?
No, they're not.
And are they on the same pace towards peace currently?
Israel's concern is not the nuclear weapons, and it's really not the Ayatollah, it's ballistic missiles. They don't want Iran to have ballistic missiles, and we're finding out why. The United States is focused on the nuclear weapon, and I think now on the Ayatollah ship altogether, so it's different. Saudi Arabia wants to get rid of the Ayatollah. They don't care about the nuclear weapons, they don't care, well, they care, or the ballistic missiles as much. They want to get rid of the Shias, the Shia government. So we're all on slightly different same book, but different pages.
Well, let's go backwards for a moment. World War II ends, UN creates a state of Israel, and then day 2 we have a war.
Right.
56 we have a war in the Suez. Every other war that comes along, all these other wars.
56, 63, 70,
73,
67, 73, yeah, right.
October 7th, all of that having occurred in the last, let's say, 75 years, without counting the numbers. Is the area now strong enough to maintain peace, even if they signed a piece of paper tomorrow?
Is what strong enough?
Is the area strong enough to actually say, we're going to have true peaceful relations from one side of what I'm going to call the Ottoman Empire to the other side?
Okay. Well, I think what you could have, if this whole war ends and Gaza kind of starts getting rebuilt, and a revival of the Abraham Accords, so you'll have that on the governmental level. but I think you'll still have a lot of clannish, tribal, national, religious tensions underneath. So governments like Syria or Iraq could join in the Abraham Accords on the surface, but underneath, they're going to have to deal with all of their ethnic groups that are vying for power or protection.
And we can't go much farther in this conversation without mentioning Mr. Putin
Okay?
and his interests in all this. Are you able to define what you think his interests are in all this?
I'm not, well, I think maybe his big interest is the more he can get the U.S. caught in a muddy quagmire, like he's got himself stuck in Kyiv, in Ukraine, that's only to his advantage. If he can get Donald Trump to stop focusing on Ukraine and focus on the Middle East, and if he can get Trump to bring Europe into the Middle East and not focus on Ukraine, that would serve his purposes. So I think the more issues he can create for the U.S., kind of the better.
And as far as you can understand, is Russia aiding any of the other groups on what we're going to call the other side from America and Israel?
Yeah, they seem to be somewhat aiding Iran, with drones and so forth and so on, which has just driven Zelensky to start military cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia. I think they just signed that a couple days ago.
And how does that complicate what, well, let's get twofold. Does that complicate what Iran's trying to do?
Well, yeah, it's sort of. I mean, the thing is, Iran is a Shia messianic movement.
Which means?
Which means, well, I don't know how much of the history you want me to go back into, but when Muhammad died, there was a succession issue, like who leads us next? So he appointed Abu Bakr, who ruled for 2 or 3 years. He had like a very low membership number in the Muslim community, like number 1 or number 2. Then he was followed by Umar, who was elected by a council, who was assassinated by a Persian, by the way. So we've already got that tension going on. And this is within 10 years after Muhammad's death. He was followed by Uthman, who was killed in a rebellion, and then finally it falls to Ali. The Shias say it should have always been Ali. The other 3 were fake news, imposters. And it really should be Ali. There was a rebellion against Ali led by a Syrian general, and he established the Umayyad Empire, which became the Abbasid Empire, which kind of became the Ottoman Empire. And they didn't accept Ali or any of Muhammad's family as the caliph. The general said, look, Allah gave me the victory. So that's Sunna Islam. That's 85% of Muslims?
85%.
Yeah, or something like that, or Sunni Muslims.
Okay.
The Shias never accepted that. They're illegitimate. They don't really have a caliph. This is all just, power play, and it's not true Islam. So there's a whole succession of, they don't call it caliph, they call it imam. There's a whole succession of imam in Shia.
Wow.
The 12th imam never died. This is their ideology. He never died. He went into occultation, whatever that means. But he's alive somewhere, and he's coming back as the Messiah. Khomeini, in 1979, claimed to be the 12th imam, the Mahdi, the Redeemer, to finally bring true Islam, that's Shiaism, to bring true Islam into the world and to put down the Sunnis who have been doing a false Islam. And that's why everything's falling apart, because you have a false Islam. And we want to go back to the true Islam of Ali and the family of Muhammad and the 12th Imam and all of that. So conquering the Ayatollah is more than a political thing. This is a religious messianic movement. It's a fundamentalist Shia movement.
And I don't want to be simplistic. This may sound like a remarkably simplistic question. What does that movement have against the state of Israel?
Well, the Shia should control the entire Middle East. Well, the entire Muslim world.
All the way
well,
to
maybe the entire world, right? It's Allah. It's the God of the world.
At least all the way to the Mediterranean Sea.
Oh, at least. They may have right now, that's their, first step, right? I mean, they may have broader, if this is the true imam coming back to rule the world, it goes beyond that. Israel, here you have a country that is not even Muslim in the middle of the Middle East, controlling everything, right? And beating us all up and being economically successful. So this is something the Shias have to get rid of. Israel is an example of the Sunni inability to run the Middle East.
And so, if it's that heavy of a hatred, and there's better words for it than what I just used, if it's so in their gut, how, other than by military means, how will Israel ever survive?
Oh, well, Israel, I think, will survive. The question is the survival of all these other countries. I mean, Israel is pretty strong, and it's economically strong, and I think it ultimately, once we get beyond Gaza and all this, we'll have the backing of the U.S. and Europe and so forth, and the Abraham Accords. I think Iran is desperate that what if the Abraham Accords go through? The Sunnis win, and Israel wins, and the West wins, and that can't happen.
And, okay, so that's their theory. We cannot let this happen.
Yeah, it's more than a theory, it's their ideology, yeah. It's a
That's
theology.
Okay,
Right.
so if it's all of that plus more, what would be the goal of the current war?
Yeah, well, that's as we used to say in my generation, the $64,000 question.
Yeah, that was, yeah.
For Israel, it's stopped them from being able to produce ballistic missiles.
Yeah, you've said that.
Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Saudi Arabia, I think, would like to get rid of the Shia Ayatollah altogether, right? I mean,
Yeah.
everybody has kind of, the U.S. goal, I think, is to get rid of to obliterate their nuclear program again.
So let's say we have either a Vietnam way of going or a Korean way of going or all the other places that we've entered since the end of World War II. And we sign something and we pull out and say, okay,
Declare victory.
we declare victory, victory's at hand.
Right.
It seems to me that still leaves a heck of a mess.
Oh, absolutely.
Is it fair? This was a question I wrote down, the first question I wrote. With everything you've said so far, has there been an American-led war, American-led conflict that produced a democratic regime since 1945?
The Korean War?
Well, we have North Korea.
Right, but we have South Korea.
Yeah. Okay, so we get half a
We get half credit.
We get half a yes. You're the professor.
Yeah.
Isn't that fair that we're 80 years in, and ever since World War II, we haven't been able to really so-called fix anything?
Well, imposing a form of government on another
Yeah.
people, another civilization,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah, it's a tall order.
It's a
I don't know if
tall order.
it's possible, yeah.
And not to say that the world wasn't less complicated back then. It took a world war to have it happen.
Right.
So when I wrote this down this morning, there's an agency called the International Agency for Energy that says this is the greatest, it's called the International Energy Agency. This is the greatest global security threat in history. Is that fair?
Well, I don't know if it's the greatest one in history. It's a great one. It's a big one. And the longer it goes on, the kind of bigger it gets.
Yeah.
But especially for Asia, a lot of their energy is coming from the Middle East, more than is true of Europe and the United States.
Yeah.
I mean, they're really, really facing constrictions.
What is the role of, you can't just talk about Putin, you have to talk about China.
Right.
Maybe because it's even farther away, 12 time zones or whatever it is, it's so far away. But it does seem as though in the background they are lurking. Is that fair?
Oh, I think they are. And
Yeah.
they're very interested in moving beyond fossil fuels.
Yeah, well,
So they're
Yeah.
scrambling to build alternate, renewable sources of energy like crazy. And AI, I think they see themselves as the rising power, and the U.S. is sort of the declining power, and they're kind of positioning themselves for that. They've kind of stayed out of this war so far as much as they can.
and what would they have any, well, first of all, how would they get involved, to use that word?
Well, I don't know.
You don't have any, yeah.
Sending drones to Iran? I don't know.
And there seems to be some parallel stories out there that include the island of Taiwan.
Yeah.
And that not only are we using up a lot of military hardware, but our attention is so far drawn away from the other side of the world, China, Taiwan. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, for right now, I think that's true. We're withdrawing weapon support from Ukraine to support the war in Iran.
Which is what Putin wants, again, as you said.
Sure, that helps him. But that means we're also less powerful if anything happens in Taiwan.
Yeah.
The U.S. is draining down its weapons stockpile.
So when this war started, it was a Friday night or Saturday morning, what thoughts go through your mind when you read about it in the paper or read whatever you read? As an expert in the Middle East and in religious studies, what are you thinking?
Well, my first thought when I heard about it, I said, really? We're actually going to attack? And then I thought it would be a couple of days, and, we'd blow up their nuclear reactor again and get rid of their missiles, and that would be it. I didn't expect it to go on this long. At this point, I think Trump is looking for an exit ramp. I don't know if he's found one yet. But at some point, and Iran, I think, has been very clever. I think they've refused to capitulate, and they're bringing more and more of the world into this war. And I think they can outweight the U.S., and they may be right.
How much of this war do you think has a political side to it for America?
What do you mean?
I mean, we have midterm elections coming up.
Right.
We have a president who cannot serve again.
Right.
All the complications of a government like ours, and then we're in the midst of, not a world war, but we're in the midst of one heck of a battle right now.
Right. Well, I mean, I've had people who, when this whole thing started, we're in a couple days in, and said, this is really about getting everybody to talk about something else beside the Epstein files. So.
Let's change for a moment. Let's segue back to the state of Israel.
Okay.
They have maintained their government since 1948.
Right.
The current man has been in charge for a very long time. How do you sense his current state of authority in the country?
Netanyahu.
Netanyahu.
You're talking about, right. Well, his coalition, by every poll I've seen the last couple of years, is losing support. It's now a minority coalition. If there were elections before this war started, he would be out of the government.
Is that right?
Yeah, he did not have the votes. He had about 50 seats. The opposition had just under 60, and then the Arab parties would go with the opposition, so that would be over 61. He would be out.
And
Now you're in the middle of a war. How much appetite do people have for throwing out the current government now? And I think not much. So as this war goes on, he's still in a pretty safe position, although elections are coming up.
And by elections coming up, is that calendar year 26?
Yes.
Will there actually be an election period if this war continues on?
Yes, because it's constitutional.
And you sense that, given the current state, where do you think he stands?
Right now, I think he's getting a lot of support because he's fighting Iran. So if this war is over and in the aftermath, I don't know. I don't think he would necessarily do so well.
There was a Robert De Niro movie 15, 20 years ago called Wag the Dog.
Right.
And the theory behind
Lots
the
of
wag,
people have said that to me too.
wag the dog theory is, let's create a war.
Right, and let's get people to talk about that, yeah.
So well, let's take a two-step issue here. How much influence did Netanyahu have on the decision that Trump made, do you think?
I think he had a good deal. I know Saudi Arabia has been pushing the U.S. to get rid of this Ayatollahship and this
Yeah.
Shia messianism. We don't hear much about Saudi Arabia, but they've been a player as well. So have the Gulf states. I mean, Iran is not attacking the Gulf states just out of whimsy. These are enemies. So I think they've all been pushed, and Trump had wants to get the, what do you call them, Abraham Accords going.
Yeah.
So-
Well, but let's take what you just said. If it was so important to Saudi Arabia to eliminate or whitewash or cleanse certain areas in the Middle East, why didn't they start the war?
Yeah, their military, they probably felt their military wasn't up to it, and if they could get the U.S. and Israel, the U.S. to do it, or U.S. and Israel, it takes the pressure off them, and it's much more powerful militaries.
Yeah.
And both Israel and America were interested in doing that, so.
And how strong do you think, at least 32 days ago, how powerful was the Iranian military?
The Iranian military is pretty powerful. We forget, Iran is, first of all, a very big country, both in terms of territory and in terms of population.
93 million people.
Yeah, it's a big country.
Yeah.
It was very well developed economically, industrially, modern, economic policy under the old Shah regime. Now, it had its issues, obviously, it was overthrown. But what the Ayatollahs inherited was a pretty westernized, pretty modernized, pretty secularized, pretty advanced country. And despite all the mismanagement and the economic, I almost want to say collapse in Iran, it's still a major, country with a significant military, with an air force and with an army and with a navy, and with its own political party police, the Revolutionary Guard, the Basij. It's not nothing, it's not like invading Venezuela, to take a random example, or Grenada or something. I mean, this was invading a major country with a strong military that can defend itself.
And
We're over here, right?
what do you make of the EU and other European countries saying, this ain't my war? What do you think of that?
Oh, I think they're right. If I were a European country, I would not want to get involved in this. I might, give some logistics support, which some of them have. You can use our air bases or,
Yes.
blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But this is a quagmire. I wouldn't want to send my troops over there.
And this morning
And they're focused on Ukraine. I think that's the bigger challenge for them.
yes,
They're worried about Poland, they're worrying about Belarus. Iran for them
Hungary.
Hungary. Iran is not, is fourth on the list, fifth, sixth, seventh, way down there.
Putin wants nothing more than the EU to dissolve. Is that fair?
I think so.
And the idea that we have Hungary and Belarus with the most unfair elections ever going to happen this calendar year,
Yeah,
he's all for that, right?
right.
Yeah. So it seems to me that it's a grand stage what's happening over there. And you can't look at it just as if America attacks Iran. Is that fair?
Partially. I mean, it was really America attacking. I mean, Israel obviously had a clear interest in demissilifying Iran. And Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states did not like Iran. So the U.S. wasn't just walking in on in its lonesome.
Yeah.
It had allies, especially Israel, which really was ready to go to war. But Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states are too, and they just don't have the military, power, the military stuff to really contribute much.
how dependent is Israel on the American dollar to support the growth of their military?
It's rather dependent. It gets a lot of military aid from the U.S. The way the military aid usually works is Israel buys American-made military equipment and the United States government pays for it. So it's also a subsidy for American military industry.
So I'm just taking a line of thought that there's a reason why Northrop Grumman stock goes up this past month, and other certain stocks go up.
Right.
Some
right,
stocks have gone down, a lot of them, obviously,
Right.
but some military-based stocks go up.
Right.
Oh, I don't want to raise an eyebrow over it, but not everybody's against war.
Right. This is the old German, the Krupp Incorporated, right? You're selling equipment here and then selling it there and then
Yeah,
selling it here and then
both
selling it
hands are opening at the same time.
Right, right.
Can Israel, it seems to be that it's critical that Israel maintain its absolute ties to America.
Yes, but Israel is also reaching out to other countries. It's got a security agreement now with India. If the Abraham Accords come through, there'll be other allies in the Middle East. It's reaching out beyond the U.S. And Israel has a pretty robust, domestic military industry as well, which is internationally known. Europe is still A, boycotting Israel, but B, still buying military equipment from Israel to protect Ukraine.
Wow.
And blah, 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 blah. So it's complicated.
And most people think that the Soviet Union is this big economic machine. They're not.
No.
But India, as you just mentioned, the most populous country in the world, sounds like that would be a very important ally to have.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Lots of people.
Lots of
A
people
growing-
need lots of things, make lots of things.
Yeah. And geographically or geopolitically well located, right? I mean, it's
Closer than we are, certainly.
for sure. So, yeah, this is a major alliance. There is this talk beyond the Abraham Accords of kind of the new Silk Road, going from India through Pakistan into Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Israel, Egypt. There's talk of building a pipeline from Israel to Cyprus, and then going into Europe, this whole new Silk Road. So,
Thus-
which is, again, one of the things Iran does not want to happen.
Thus, Pakistan and the side doors has been trying to get people together this past couple days.
Right.
You don't think of Pakistan as this great player on the world stage,
Right.
but here they are.
But here they are. And if Israel is doing agreements with India, and, Pakistan is worried about Pakistan, right? Where do they want to be positioned in this world?
Yeah.
And do they want to, would they prefer alliance with Saudi Arabia and Israel and America, or would they prefer an alliance with China? That's
Is it-
their calculation, and right now they're trying to do peace, well, they're also trying to do peace in the Middle East because they need the oil or the natural gas or whatever it is.
Desalinization, which means taking
another-
salt water and making it into drinking water. One of the ways Israel survived post-1948. Israel's still the leader in that
Right.
area, and Iran knew that, and of course started bombing the desalination plants in the area.
Right.
Economically, there's a clear line between Israel and the other areas of the Middle East.
Yeah.
And is desalinization one of the ways Israel moves to maintain and continue those relationships?
Oh, yeah. And the Gulf states all depend on desalinization. And the Emirates and Oman. All of these countries are depending on Israeli desalinization technology. And Iran is bombing those desalinization
Yes.
plants because then these countries run out of drinking water.
Yes.
So, yeah.
And when Israel finds in the Mediterranean Sea, they say, we found oil.
Uh-huh.
They sell that oil
Right.
to countries in the Middle East.
Right.
Another way in which we have this small little New Jersey, no bigger than New Jersey, on this huge swath of Ottoman Empire land saying, you know, we are, not only are we viable, but we're critically important to all of you,
Right.
except for Iran at the moment.
Because Iran is a Shia messianic movement.
Yeah, you've said that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I don't know if Americans fully understand that is not just a little leap in the sand.
Yeah, no,
That is an untakeable step.
that is big. It's major. Untakeable step is a good description.
It's just, you can bomb them all you want. They're not going to understand emotionally and realistically that Israel can be a partner with them.
Right. Now, I have to tell you, with my first experiences with Israel, and this was in the late 60s, early 70s,
Okay?
I had I guess it was kind of an uncle, or somehow related to me, whose business was building exhibition stands for, in Iran, for, you know, when they had business expositions or trade expositions or stuff like that. And he was over there 3-4 times a year building the Israeli booths and the Israeli exhibition centers and making a good living on it. And, I mean, Israel and Iran was just, they were partners going back and forth all the time. Then you had the revolution. And all of that went down the drain, like, very quickly.
Well, not only,
But, you know, that could be revived again. It wasn't the Iranian people, it was the Shia, I'll use the term, messianic ideology.
not only was the Shah overran, but the Shah came here. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so not only were they angry about the Shah itself, but we became even more of a mortal enemy
Right.
by saying, we'll take him in.
Right, right.
And that's 50 years ago.
Yeah, more or less. Right.
But the memory of people in that area of the world is very long.
Yeah. Well, not everybody suffered under the Shah either. I mean, there was obviously discontent because there was a revolution. And I have no idea, but I wonder how many Iranians are saying, you know, maybe having a Shah wasn't such a bad idea after all. As bad as the economy was under the Shah, it's just cratering right now. Has been for a while.
And you know, the word economy, we haven't talked about that too much in the minutes that we have left. Is there a way to describe the economy? Let's start with, is there an economy in Lebanon?
In Lebanon,
Yes.
there's a terrifically good, functioning economy in Lebanon when it's not at war with itself. Right now, there's major fighting going on in the south between Hezbollah, Israel, and the Lebanese army. The Lebanese army is trying to demilitarize Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a stronger military than the Lebanese army. That's another problem. The rest of Lebanon was basically doing okay, but it didn't control South Lebanon, the south of the country.
Syria. Is there an economy going on in Syria?
Yeah, Syria's it really has revived since the
fall of Assad?
revolution, what, a year and a half ago. So it seems to start to be functioning again. People are coming back, business people are coming back. The security situation is, it depends where you are. In some places it's good, in some places it's not so good.
Yeah.
There's still local rebellions against this and that, and there's still local clans and tribes and religious groups, you know, fighting each other, Sunnis fighting Druze, Druze fighting Christians, you know. But Syria seems to have its act coming together again.
So when you talk about,
This is why the Abraham Accords are good for them.
yeah, when you talk about these countries that are really aiming towards some economic growth, they still have the struggle of the fact that they don't want to acknowledge the right of Israel to exist.
Well, that's changing too.
And that's what I thought was important.
Yeah.
That is that slow-moving molasses coming out,
Yeah.
slowly moving to happen?
And I think it was led by Saudi Arabia, and the
Yeah.
Gulf states are online. I'm going to say, Syria just said, if Abraham Accords get revitalized, you know, keep us on the mailing list.
Is that
You know?
right?
Yeah. Jordan is willing to go along with it. Egypt is willing. I mean, it'll take a while. You know, the populations have to be brought into, you know, conformity and all of that.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be, but yeah, and the logic in the region is, since the 19th century with the Ottoman Empire, So the Ottoman Empire didn't work. We've tried socialism. We've tried communism. We've tried democracy. We've tried this. We've tried that. Nothing has worked. So what groups like ISIS and Al-Qaeda are saying, yeah, we need to go back to a caliphate, right? The golden age, the Abbasids, that's what we need to come back to. Most of the political leadership said, no, that's not a way forward, that's a way backward. We need to look forward towards Europe and toward more democracy, more economic development,
Yeah.
and so on and so forth. And that's the push behind the Abraham Accord. We've tried everything else. Let's give up this war with Israel and move forward as a region. And this hasn't converted everybody overnight, but I think that's where
Yeah.
the leaders are thinking.
And then we have areas, my geography's right, outside of the first sphere, like a country like Afghanistan, where young girls can't go to school
Right.
past the third grade and all that. And so, again, another area where we thought we could prescribe some government,
Yeah, that didn't work so
Madisonian
well
government.
either. Right.
I think the goal of American political leadership is to make a Madisonian type of government available. Is that fair?
Sure.
And if it doesn't happen, what's the best we can do to preserve peace in the area?
Right. And again, I think the Abraham Accords had a real shot at it.
Yeah, you've mentioned that enough times where I think everybody listening is going to understand that there is some type of entity in existence that if everybody took the time to read it and understand it and grasp it.
And starts to feel the economic benefits,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And the people of Israel, are they all in on the Abraham Accords?
Oh, yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
How about the Hasidim?
Well, they're not much into anything, I mean, the Haredim, yeah.
Yeah,
For them, sure, it's just another thing out there, you know.
yeah.
As somebody once explained to me, they kind of treat the Israeli government the way they treated the Polish government. Yeah, it's out there, you listen to them, and, you know,
Yeah.
but they're irrelevant.
They don't even exist to them, right?
Yeah, they're just, yeah,
Let us go to the Western Wall and pray every day.
right.
Leave us alone.
And keep women away, yeah.
Yeah, and so the imperfectness of Israel sure does sound like the best placed option, at least to aim for, maybe not in name, but to aim for these other countries. A somewhat democratic, open economy, moving forward country.
But with a large population of Haredim who don't recognize the government, who don't want to be conscripted into the army, who, you know, taking tax money for the yeshivas,
Yeah,
but don't want to contribute.
yeah.
You've got that tribalism as well, which is, by the way, very Middle Eastern.
Well, let's go back to where we started this, and by the way, I haven't turned one page of my notes from things to ask you about.
Oh, dear.
Is the schism, the wide divide, the Grand Canyon of how experts like you see things. In your 45 years as a professor, are we closer to peace?
I think we were, again, I'll say with the Abraham Accord,
Yeah,
right now,
yeah.
you know, everything is like, just everything's on hold. Everything's in turmoil. And we'll have to see what happens, and it may be the end of this war. It may be 2 years when Trump is out of office. It may, who knows? Maybe our midterm elections. But for right now, everything is just sort of on hold.
And what about Netanyahu?
Yeah, so he's on hold too. You know, he needs to get through the next election.
And if he doesn't?
He's out of power. He's got a couple court cases against him. He may end up being convicted. He may end up going to jail. I think this is a driving force for him to keep the situation hot and on the boil. I don't know exactly, but he's facing some significant problems. And his support is dwindling. His only really strong support right now is the Haredim, the ultra-Orthodox, and they're getting everything they want. And this is going to be a big problem for Israel moving forward when we get beyond all of this.
So my last question is a rather simple one. It's still very complicated, isn't it?
It is still very complicated, and it always will be complicated.
Yeah.
And as I used to tell my students when I taught courses in the Middle East, just want to remind you, Israel is a Middle Eastern country.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Haas.
Well, thank you for inviting me.
I hope we've enlightened our audience
Well, I
to an
hope
extent
so.
that they've learned about the complications and can better understand the situation. Thank you very much for your time, sir.
You're more than welcome. Thank you.